So, Anne-Marie, I want to start with you. We have this war ongoing over 2 months now, Russia invading Ukraine. Despite for all of the tragedy on the ground and beyond, and there is certainly a lot of it, there has been a pretty unified response from the West, from NATO. I want grade it for me so far. How do you think the United States and allies are doing?
Well, I think for the war itself, you definitely have to give them an A. Indeed, when you and I last talked, we were at the Munich Security Conference at the end of February. And at that point, the betting was, will Putin invade or not? When he invaded less than a week later, most people would have said 2 weeks, he's going to be in Kyiv if that's his intention. A month later, people couldn't believe it. Now, it's really extraordinary. Not only has he not accomplished his aims, but the Ukrainians and basically NATO behind them are in fact pushing Russia back.
And is NATO stronger today in your view? And if it is that a good thing?
NATO's certainly stronger. In part, NATO has a mission. This was the mission that NATO was created for. So again, if we're thinking about NATO's ability to push back against Russia, to defend against Russia, it is stronger. The big hard questions are now. Finland and Sweden have said they want to join, and NATO is delighted. My question there is, okay, so how are you now going to say no to Ukraine? You can't say it borders Russia, so does Finland. Obviously, the Baltics do already. You could have said, well, it's weaker, it has a corrupt government, it isn't a stable rule of law society. How are you going to say that when you're spending tens of billions, an extraordinary amount of money, supporting that same Ukrainian government against Russia? And if you say yes to Ukraine, well, surely you have to say yes to Moldova and to Belarus and to Georgia, and then where are you?
Yeah, well, so it's a measure of how significant this whole crisis is that it has actually brought Anne-Marie and I together in ways that aren't necessarily typical. So a couple of things. I mean, I think I agree with her that in terms of the overall response that the West has made to this, it's been quite impressive. And I give the Biden administration high marks for the coordination they've been able to do. What people have missed is sort of both looking backwards and looking forwards. First of all, it's been far too facile for people to say, well, this whole event proves that the problem in Europe is Vladimir Putin, him alone, and we had nothing to do with this. That NATO enlargement was totally unrelated to any of this. The deterioration of Russian relations with the West over a 20-year period had nothing to do with this. It's all Putin's fault, etc. That's a very convenient explanation to throw out, and I think it's simply historically inaccurate. So we're starting to forget how we got into this tragedy. That doesn't justify what Russia has done at all, but it's something we shouldn't lose sight of as we try to look forward. The second thing that worries me, and I think Anne-Marie's put her finger on it, is people have not thought very much about the end game here. What does an appropriate political settlement look like? How far can you push a nuclear-armed power who's not doing well, whose ambitions are clearly being thwarted, that's going to lose power over time? But if our objective is to, drive Russia out of the ranks of the great powers, which is one way of interpreting some of the remarks that have been made by Western officials, then you have to wonder at what point do they start considering other options? How far do you push NATO forward, recognizing that that doesn't just involve sending javelins to other countries, that might involve sending American troops to other countries?